feeling different in a negative way is something we learn. So I never felt negative about my body until I was about 11 or 12. So before that, I felt really good about my body and that I had a disability, but there was no negative connotation with that at all. And it was about, grade 7, grade 8, we all start to struggle a little bit. And I started to recognize the way that society viewed disability and the way that people treated me, having lower expectations for me, that disability was something that people felt sorry for. And this was back late 90s. So I think things are moving in a better direction these days. And I hope kids with disabilities growing up don't feel quite as, I guess the word was ashamed as I did. But yeah, so grade 8, definitely going to high school, I wanted to hide and I didn't feel like I belonged. So I hid behind a prosthetic leg. I tried to do anything and everything I could to look normal. So I wore baggy clothes. I wore my prosthetic every day. I didn't join the high school swim team because I didn't want anyone to see my body. So it felt, I would say, a lot of shame and discomfort, confusion. Why didn't I fit in? Why didn't I belong? Um, yeah, and when as I was uncomfortable with myself, my discomfort bounced off of other people and came back as discomfort. So I think that, it wasn't just all in my head. I think other people were also uncomfortable with me because I was uncomfortable. And so it just created this air and this vibe of discomfort. So I really struggled in my teenage years.
I'm not really sure where I have never belonged. I mean, I must say that I have pretty much felt like I belonged everywhere that I wanted to belong. I mean, I was a horrible teenager as well, and high school was not fun in any way, but I wonder, I think I still belonged. I think I was still just as horrible as everyone else at that time. But I where I've really been excluded. I mean, it's all systemic when it comes to disability, and it all comes down to being a wheelchair user, in my view. So I I do believe that I've never felt ableism, personal ableism against myself, and that's really a strange position for me to take because when I'm on anywhere on the street or on public transit, people will literally come up to me and shout, "What happened?" And I have to respond to that. So I suppose that is ableism, but the reality is that, I'll make some kind of flippant comment or I'll just say, "Oh, I was born this handsome," or, something like that. And then if they really need a real answer, I'll give them a real answer. I'm born with no arms and legs, but it doesn't hold me back from anything. I, I just feel that for whatever reason, I'm able to twist things around within 5 minutes and then people stop seeing the disability with me, which can be a big problem in itself because then they forget that I'm disabled and will invite me to come join them for dinner at some kind of inaccessible, you know, restaurant. But it's it's really the it's really the cities and the spaces that I don't feel that I belong in, and it's really most of Canada. I mean, the accessibility of Canada, of the world, is so problematic, and that's why I moved from Sarnia, Ontario, to London, Ontario, for my undergrad. But then I moved to Vancouver because it's one of the most wheelchair accessible cities in the country, likely in the world. But when I go to a place like Toronto, it's just everything there is screaming at me, get out of here. We don't want you here. 90% of the buildings are not accessible to me. I can't get a taxi easily. I can't take the subway. And so it's these structural systems that make me feel unwelcome. And to compound it even more, you know, people aren't deliberately trying to exclude in the day to day. Although, you know, now that I'm in a position of senior leadership and I've sort of poked my head up above the clouds and I can look around, I am starting to become infuriated with the fact, you know, why do I have to solve all of these problems? Why hasn't this already been solved 30, 50 years ago? I mean, everybody knows that there are people in wheelchairs in our society. It's time to stop pretending otherwise.